Hey, how's it going, fight fans? Welcome to mindforcombat. If you're new to this channel, my name's ROHAN, and in this video I'll be breaking down the upcoming heavyweight world championship rematch between Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou. Now, this is a key and pivotal fight in the heavyweight division, and it's going to have an impact that's felt in the heavyweight division for the upcoming years. And it's probably going to shape the future of the heavyweight division for the next 5 to 10 years in a lot of ways, especially when you consider the fact that Stipe Miocic is potentially the greatest heavyweight of all time. Like, his resume is right there comparable with Fedor Emelianenko. Now, who you give the edge is probably your personal preference. I suppose that's a video that I can do breaking that down, but this fight in itself is very important. He takes on Francis Ngannou in a rematch where Francis Ngannou is probably one of the hardest hitting heavyweights I've ever seen, certainly since Shane Carwin. He's the biggest hitter that I've seen in MMA, and he may even be a bigger hitter than Shane Carwin. Francis Ngannou is terrifying, and since his loss to Stipe Miocic, he obviously lost that fight to Derek Lewis, but then he's been absolutely unstoppable since stopping everyone in the first round. The winner of this fight will set themselves up for a big position in the heavyweight division with all the upcoming contenders, with the spotlight that's now coming onto the UFC again as we're moving out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there is a lot of stuff to be said about both of these guys and the future of their careers in the heavyweight division. For Stipe Miocic, he's obviously just finished his trilogy with Daniel Cormier to cement his position, and in his most recent fight he came in all the way down at 231 pounds. That's going to be very interesting coming into this fight, because Ngannou is about 260 solid iron, and it's based on Stipe's wrestling that he won the last fight. So anyways, without further ado, and without me salivating over this fight anymore, let's go through this fight. Let's go through the tail of the tape and let's break this one down. Stipe Miocic comes into this fight at 38 years old. Now, at heavyweight, you do tend to have a bit of a longer shelf life, but even for a heavyweight that's getting on in age, at 38 years old, you've got to start to wonder, is the clock starting to run out on Stipe Miocic? Now, we've seen him have wars and tear-ups with the likes of Daniel Cormier, got knocked out in 2018. He's had a lot of wars in his career. JDS comes to mind once. Alistair Overeem, that fight was a tough fight. He's had a lot of tough fights in his career, and this is a man who's been around for a long time now. Is age going to start to be a factor? Maybe. He hasn't shown it. He's looked great. He's looked terrific in his most recent fights, but it's still something to consider. Francis Ngannou is 34 years old, and whilst that's not that much younger than Stipe Miocic, I think it is worth noting that at 34 he's only had really a professional career. He hasn't really had an amateur career. He started training around 24, 25 years old, so there's been no wear and tear on his body per se, not comparable to what Stipe would have gone through starting training from childhood. So I think that's important to note, that whilst there's only 4 years between them, the gap in the age is probably a lot more than fight years, is what I'm trying to say. Stipe Miocic has a professional record of 20 wins and 3 losses. Francis Ngannou is 15 and 3. Both of these guys are main eventers. Now, yes, of course, Stipe has much greater experience against the top echelon of the division, but Francis Ngannou has been their main eventer for a long time. Experience shouldn't be a factor in this fight. They both stand at 64 inches tall. 64 inches tall, They both stand at 6'4", and Stipe Miocic has an 80-inch reach, whereas Francis Ngannou has an 83-inch reach. He will enjoy a 3-inch reach advantage over Stipe Miocic. To describe this style, Stipe Miocic is what I would describe as a wrestle boxer. Yes, he can kick, yes, he can submit people, but where he shines is with his hands, and when he's dominating top control, he enjoys that position. For Francis Ngannou, I would describe him as a striker. He's a brawler, certainly carries big power, so you flat out name him a knockout artist. He's one of the only true knockout artist I've seen in years, and someone like Rumble is a true knockout artist, a guy who will one shot hit you and it will just be over. I think that's the difference. Right, let's look at some of their key wins. For Francis Ngannou, we'll start with him. His resume is not as lengthy as Stipe Miocic, but he's got a pretty damn good resume in his own right. He of course knocked out Overeem in that viral knockout. He's beaten the likes of Cain Velasquez to end his career. Curtis Blades not once but twice. He finished JDS's final winning streak in the UFC, and then of course most recently he knocked out Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's a heavyweight that I really respect. Stipe Miocic's resume, like I said, is lengthy. He can go all the way back to his wins over Roy Nelson, who was a top contender at the time. He of course beat Mark Hunt when Mark Hunt was a top contender. He's just finished his trilogy with DC, beat DC twice. He knocked out JDS himself to revenge an earlier loss. He knocked out Overeem for his first title defense. He of course beat the legendary Fabricio Werdum, and he's taken out Francis Ngannou himself, and many other wins in there as well. So these are two guys with lengthy, incredible resumes. The issues for Stipe coming into this fight, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be his age, the wear and tear he's taken, and of course his susceptibility to getting hit. I think he's very punchable at times, and I think Ngannou is a very dangerous hitter. Ngannou, the biggest issues he's going to have coming into this fight is going to be his wrestling and his cardio, as per last time, and also his mental edge, where he may not have that against Stipe, because Stipe knows he can beat Ngannou. He's not coming in afraid of Ngannou. Let's see how that one goes. Let's get into my prediction. Well, before that, the X factor for Stipe will of course be his wrestling, and the X factor for Ngannou will be his punching power. But yeah, now let's get into the prediction. So I think there's a big distinction in this fight and the last fight, and I think that's something that must be stated as a prerequisite before we go into this breakdown. So I picked Stipe to win the fight last time, and I was confident that 10 times out of 10 going into that fight in early 2018 that Stipe would win. No matter what happens, he's definitely going to win, right? Things are a bit different this time. Firstly, Francis Ngannou is not taking this fight on 6 weeks notice after his last fight. He's had plenty of time to prepare and train for this fight. Francis Ngannou's also not had a messy camp where he was in France, in Vegas. He was all over the place, yo-yoing about. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was the case. Not to say that these are excuses, but these are important things to note when you're thinking about the rematch and how the rematch is going to play out. Stipe is older, he's going to be slower naturally, and he's going to be a bit more battle-worn than he was last time. Francis Ngannou has now also experienced Stipe Miocic, so he's not coming in with a false sense of security that he can just defend the takedowns and dominate him on the feet. As you saw in the last fight, he came out and was just winging wild punches at Stipe, and Stipe employed some beautiful head movement to avoid all those shots, and he was able to avoid all the danger and then, implement his own game plan to get the victory. This fight is going to be important because Francis Ngannou has had plenty of time to adapt, improve, and show changes in his game, bring in the correct partners, train his wrestling, and get to a level where he needs to be, not to be able to out-wrestle Stipe, but to defend takedowns for long enough to keep it on the feet, be tame and calm on the feet, not waste all his energy, and throw out the shots. I also think Stipe is probably going to enjoy coming in lighter because he said speed kills. Yeah, he came in around 231 last fight. I reckon he will probably stick around that mark. That's going to give Francis Ngannou a 30 to 35 pound weight advantage in this fight, and I think that's something that's important to note. Now, how does this fight play out? I think Francis Ngannou comes out a lot more calm and poised this time around. I think Stipe Miocic is not going to find the success as early as he did last time. I think Francis Ngannou is going to look to pick his shots a bit more. Now, he can't help himself but get a bit wild, and in those opportunities of getting wild is where Stipe's opportunities will lie. That's where he'll be able to get in takedowns. That's where he's going to be able to get in shots. That's where he's going to be able to wear out Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou is going to need to be wary of what Stipe is throwing back at him, because he's got a respected power, but he has shown us that he has a sturdy, if not cast iron chin in his own right. I believe that this is going to be a fight where Stipe is going to come out there and going to try to implement the wrestling early. He's not going to be able to, and actually I think he's going to lose a couple of the early exchanges as Stipe is fresh. As the fight wears on, I think Stipe could be able to take over the fight if it goes past round 4 and 5. I think this is going to be Stipe all day. He'll win a decision. I don't necessarily think that's what happens. I think Francis Ngannou comes out much more poised, and he's going to wait for his opportunity, and when the opportunity comes, he's going to crack with a lot of power, and I think he's going to take Stipe out. This time around, things have changed, and whilst I think Stipe is still the better, more well-rounded, technically, supreme fighter in every way, shape, and form, I think Francis Ngannou gets it done this time, just based on some of the changing factors that have moved on in the fight. Stipe comes into this fight now 38 years old. Francis has now had a ton more experience than he had last time, and he doesn't come in with a false sense of security. I'm going with Francis Ngannou for the knockout by round 3. If not, Stipe will win, but my official prediction is Francis Ngannou. Anyways, guys, comment below. Let me know how you guys see this going. Let me know if you enjoyed my video, my breakdown. If you're new here, remember to like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Thank you for watching, guys. I'm Rohan, and this is Mindful Combat.